All right. Thus begins the second Foil live stream, getting everything in order, hopefully with better audio quality too. Let's see how everything sounds here. Check, testing, check. All right, everything seems to be in order. Tape delayed and all. Great. So, those of you who are just joining us or will be in the near future, maybe watching this tape delayed, but given the chance to, of course, enjoy on YouTube, this is the second Foil Guy live stream. For those of you who are new to the channel, the Foil Guy is myself and taking aluminum foil requests of anything that you guys would like. There are only three standards. First and foremost, that the sculpture in of itself is appropriate for all audiences and of course has some sort of visual reference or material that I could base them off of. If you want to describe it, I can work with that, but nonetheless just something that is set in tangible, appropriate, and of course willing to be not just a blessing to you, but hopefully those all around us. That will be the standard and going, that you are going to enjoy what is being made and that this is a positive time for all of those involved. Last time we had a good reception and response, participation in the chat box for the request as the broadcast continued. And of course, we enjoyed that time together. I did especially. And so learning from what we didn't get right the first time, our audio equipment has improved, and we also are going to hopefully get more into the groove as far as giving the banter as the live stream proceeds. So hopefully, and obviously desiring the time to be well spent and not just given to dead air or the crinkling sounds of aluminum foil, probably take the burden off me, but want to keep everyone engaged on this. I will be happy to be taking any requests for the next 2 hours or so. And if we have to cut off early or can even go longer, that is completely fine. But we'll try and maybe tap off around 9 sculptures. That tends to be where my strength can ultimately take us. But obviously, starting us off, we had some requests that were made in the week between, and one that was specifically requested to be done on live stream. So to start us off, we'll be doing the Cinderella Castle from Disneyland. And if any of you are familiar with the Disney logo, yes, it will be based on that. I have my computer adjacent to us right here, so I will have visual aid for anything that you guys want me to look up. And once again, just remember that as long as the request for the sculpture is something that I can base on visually, that will be perfectly acceptable. But nonetheless, let's get started with the Disneyland Castle. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is a historical reference in the Disneyland Castle, and don't mean like ancient medieval history or anything like that, but the idea that it was called Cinderella's Castle, but the one in San Diego, California was more based on Princess Aurora's than Cinderella. But regardless of whether I've seen any of them recently or not, it's amusing. Actually, now that I think about it, the first sculpture that we did for the first live stream was Cinderella herself, so why not her castle? You can see I'm just doing a basic mold that I can sharpen details around as we will be proceeding, and it seems like the outer wall is probably going to give us the most trouble. The individual who asked it said that it should only be about that size and dimension. Obviously, I could make this bigger. If you've followed the channel for any length of time, you're probably familiar. I've done more impressive castles and for longer lengths of time. But this one will be fairly straightforward, just lots of pointy spires and what's the word for the little blocks that they would use for archers and so forth. You see as many representations of war in Disney films. And again, I'm not really watching many Disney films, so maybe that's my fault. But nonetheless, it is a wonderful thing to be able to do these things for you all. And I hope that as broadcast unfolds, just like last time, we get a lot of various requests. Also, for those of you who perhaps will be watching this at a later date, or those who are here now, I'm curious if the uploaded videos individually for a live stream were acceptable as far as their format, or if it would just be probably best to leave the request made on live streams to be different from the individual videos, since of course the sped up process doesn't show me making the double checks and the examinations of the visual material in the chat. By the way, if any of you guys get confused, whenever I'm nervous, I use larger words than what's necessary, so that's a little tell for me. Don't worry about it. It is my coping mechanism, and I choose how to make things awkward. Nonetheless, always a fan of medieval castle work as well. The Lego franchise is definitely built more into this. I could probably use that as a better reference than most. Still, all commendations for people that use their creative mediums in these ways. Oh, I do not want ads. There we go. Try to make these things bigger and it just gets more difficult. There we go. Let's start working on the first towers here. Prices on some of these baffle the imagination, but I have been to Disneyland before, so I am equally surprised and not. Got to keep the machines going, I suppose. Oh my. For those who are watching the live stream, past, present, or future, I'm curious to know if you have any amusing Disneyland stories. I had a final exam while I was still engaged to my now wife. She's a Disneyland fanatic, and her parents took her hither and yon when she was younger. So one of the opportunities for us to kind of test out our ability to productively spend the rest of our lives together was obviously to be put in a situation where you see them enjoying themselves, see them tired, fatigued, and frustrated, and being able to appreciate and enjoy the time spent regardless of where they're at in their various moods in life. And we saw both when we went to Disneyland that early summer, obviously a little warmer, but since I'm a desert rat, it wasn't too much of a phase for me. California hot is very different from other areas of the country and how they can express heat. But when we went into the Star Wars area for lunch, we got one of the, what was it, the Wookiee boba type deals. Ended up spilling that, and so I had to take her over to the merchandise shop and cover the clothes replacements, since it would be a much longer walk from the hotel, and it's the plan to get merchandise anyway for the trip. So killed two birds with one stone, but it was amusing that that ended up being the cause and motivation for getting those things early. And they had drainage areas throughout the entire cafe. The staff were very accommodating. And man, that that's a segue upon a non sequitur into another story. The Disneyland staff, you really have to have not just empathy but pity for them, because I have very good friends who used to work in those areas. One of them was a professional stage designer, so they'd have her do all of the work regarding the maintenance of the shows and stuff. And oh my goodness, just the amount of expectations, work hours, all that's required of them. I mean, we all see the memes of fantastic people like the evil queen got fired because a bunch of unreasonable people complained about her doing her job too well. But the same is true when you're talking about the people behind the scenes. And just like anyone who's ever eaten out, you can tell the kind of people who have been in those shoes want to be the kind of people that were easier to wait on, not make their days harder than they would normally be, because you've been in those kinds of situations. It's my kind of mentality anyway. The best kind of people to serve are those who've served themselves. So if you're going to eat out, make sure that you have some history in food service, or at least put yourself in their shoes. Make their day a little easier. Because even if you don't get the kind of service that you need, you can at least appreciate that they are providing a service to you. And you would have had bad days as well. It'd be amusing to kind of thinking if I was doing this professionally, not just the kind of investment that I'd have to make in presentation and upgrades and stuff. I'm just doing this for my spare time, but the kind of difference it makes when you have to do these things for a living. The pressure is on, but it's not the case here. I just get to do this for fun. I get to enjoy the time spent with anyone that finds it a blessing, which, granted, isn't always the case. Still, I appreciate the positive comments, and I always enjoy the engagement, even if it's just individuals. By the way, just another side note, looking at analytics and stuff, kind of seeing the types of videos that people are enjoying. Not obviously my set format. I'll be doing whatever I'm requested individually, but obviously I'm curious to see which videos have more views than others. And the top 3 is one of the older videos I did. One of the Eiffel Tower, one of Siren Head, which is a creepypasta character allegedly, and a great white shark, one of the newer ones. One of the first maybe 5 or 10 videos I ever did, just a simple rattlesnake when I hadn't gotten my setup officially done, and couldn't even keep the sculpture and the camera oftentimes because I was too busy focused on the detailing. That got some pretty high viewage too, and you just never know what's going to appeal to people, but it is amusing. And that was kind of the intent when I would making this as my format. I would be doing it in order to basically make sure that as many people as possible would get the kind of engagement that they would want, that they would enjoy their thing, and that individuals rather than mass groups, and as much as possible, not monetizing these videos or anything, but appeal to as broad an audience as possible. And then that way, from there, they would want to check out any of the other things and just, try to be one of the brighter, more positive sides of the internet. But eventually, of course, one of the topics would go viral, as they say, and just kind of let that draw in more people for more creative ideas. But it is amusing to me. That's the point of the story, is to just see what kind of things end up attracting the most people to a very specific topic, and genre, because, I obviously have my interests, and that would appeal to people that are just like me, but very few people are just like me. In fact, for certain, only one is just like me on this planet. So I found it more intelligent and efficient to just make it focused on you guys, making sure that the others-centered mindset is what's going to be the most productive invested time long term. Another thing that kind of been a hit and miss, not in terms of necessarily regarding the foil channel, but just the foil medium as a whole, is we're looking into hardening these sculptures to make them more permanent and able to actually be put forward as an art medium for sale and stuff. And I would never charge for these just on their own. They're very temporary, and I wouldn't want someone who invested good money to trip over and drop something and end up having that kind of negative or tragic association. It's a very forgiving medium, don't get me wrong, but the idea of me charging this isn't something I can do in good conscience unless it's actually worth what I think they would be paying for it, or what they would even choose to pay for it. But the sort of chemicals that we're looking into to try and make this more firm and permanent have been quite the adventure. We've looked into things like sealants and gloss work, polyurethane and wood finishers, 2-solution resin, and it's either just ruined the sculpture, taken away from the details in some way, or it's just been a total loss and making all the ideas of it being a sculpture in the first place just derpy. Obviously, I wouldn't be the foil guy if I had settled into another medium. This is the one that, as you can tell, I have the most experience with. But it's a shame because obviously there are some people that would be just as much blessed if they had taken the time to invest in it. And, want to be able to use this to honor God. So if you guys know of anything that you'd probably consider me trying, if I've already tried it, I'll let you know. But it would be a huge step forward in this, possibly lead to further investment of equipment and opening doors for opportunities, because got a household to take care of, No, don't worry, it's not about the money, never will be. It's just fun to be able to do this for you guys. But anyway, so Disneyland, back to that segue. Gotta admire again the astounding prices that they make, but I do not regret my choice of a spouse that's simply a package deal. And what better sense of priorities than to give them the opportunity to be blessed along with these things. Another one of the requests I think that would be made, and well, that'll be another story for a minute. Let me finish my thought before I manifest ADHD too dramatically. Another interesting thing that I think, as far as the Disney appeal, is whether it's princesses, whether it's the animated characters, whether it's like Maleficent in the dragon form, or all the spin-offs, it's definitely a wide market. So I'm glad that I'm not totally embittered by Disney products and leaving that out to the wind. And again, even if I did have a problem with the medium I was requested of, I wouldn't really care, since this is more focused on the person who made the request than whether or not I enjoy it. So don't think that you have to ask if, oh, well, I don't like that medium, or oh, I'm boycotting this. The only reason I wouldn't do it is if the sculpture in of itself wasn't appropriate. That then being said, the interesting thing about the Disneyland phenomenon, I the same trip, I think it was, I brought my foil in, not to Disneyland proper, but to downtown Disney. And we were going to be going to, this was in the San Diego branch, the Italian restaurant there. Name escapes me, but my wife loves the pizzas because they import even the water that they use, allegedly. I don't necessarily buy that. But all that is supposed to be, authentic Italian, and the prices reflect that. But the amusing thing was I brought in my roll of foil because, if you ever see a person traveling with a roll of aluminum foil, that's probably me. If you want to, stop and say hi, don't worry about it. I would be happy to meet and greet. But the people doing the security, there is obviously, just like in any gathering of people in positions of authority, there are those who are going to try and make your day easier and those who are going to try and make your day harder. And the security group, unfortunately, the people who are more in a social gathering, the one that was just, doing the search before letting us in, we just, made the comment, oh, hey, what's the aluminum foil for? I showed him the social media pages and say, like, just make a habit of it. And if I can make something for someone along the way, I won't charge or anything like that. It's not soliciting, but that's the intended purpose. And so they're like, okay, well, I don't have a problem with it, but let me just check with the, manager, make sure that would be okay. And the lady who came over was not as gracious. I won't build on that point any longer, but they made me have to throw out the entire roll. And this was a hefty Costco roll at that, which was very tragic for the whole vacation because we weren't just going to Disneyland. So I could have used that material elsewhere. But since we were obviously burning daylight and we wanted to get into the park, I just had to toss it. And very sad, very negative first impression, but didn't ruin the vacation, didn't ruin the time together. It's just amusing to me that Disneyland would frown upon my medium. Nonetheless, not their fault. I'm sure they're just observing policy. One could imagine, though, what was going through their heads because the manager lady, I won't come up with any other pejorative terms to describe her, makes you wonder what was going through her head as to what I intended to do with the foil, like, try and sabotage some sort of rider machine or try to put some obscene wrappings around something. I don't know what was going through their head. That would be a funny poll to start, is what do you think goes through the mind of the average professional establishment when they see someone walking in with a roll of aluminum foil? Oh my. Don't get me wrong, I see where they're coming from. I deal with a lot of troubled kids in the actual profession that I do for a living, and it is certainly a possibility for even the most innocent of things to be used for destructive ends. For those of you who want to see something on the top, we're making progress here. Still, it was just tragic. Had to move on from that emotionally as well as financially. Wasn't like the Tiger King, though. I did financially recover from that. So, request system continues. And note that while this sculpture is ongoing, do not hesitate to leave your request as the live stream unfolds. We are, and by we I mean me, happy to fill any requests as they come. Obviously, we'll keep the chat box in line, and hopefully as this starts to take off, we'll have like a Word document or something set aside so that we get all of the requests in order as they come and cap it off once we hit a certain threshold. Maybe that'll incentivize people to show up early. But yeah, time of this recording, let's see, it's July 2nd, Mountain Standard Time, 12 o'clock, hopefully centralized. That's another question for all of you. What would be a more ideal time or day to get this done? Because obviously I'm doing this on a free time basis, but if I have work in advance, that will give me kind of perspective that could make plans around it so that more of you end up here able to engage and be blessed by the time. So let me know if there's another day that would perhaps be more suited, and we will do our best to accommodate most numbers of people as possible. But also note as well that there's a definite opportunity not just to say no, but an opportunity to be flexible when it comes to these things. Let's see here. Okay. So we're working on the peak tower here. And once we have the finer details set in this, then it'll just be a matter of getting everything sharp and where it belongs. That's my style. I start as a blob and then I just refine details. Do love it when I see other people's techniques when they take up this medium, though. Some folks I've actually gotten the chance to meet that use one entire roll for their sculptures, others that really set finer details in, and it's always great to see how people, as creative as they are in their own mediums, end up being just as much a blessing in those areas. Lumi Sculpts, I think, was a fantastic Instagram channel that reached out to me, and love their work. Apparently doing some art shows. I've also seen others. Can't recall set names of at this very moment, but it is always awesome to see we are not alone in these things. All right, so here's what we got so far. Let's work on, make sure that this looks acceptable for where you guys are standing. Looks good so far. Let's see if I can maybe refine the inner cord a little bit, because that's the secondary wall. Once I finish this, note that our second request is open and available. I'll be keeping my eye on the chat box while we approach that moment. But nonetheless, format is set as a hangout sesh too, so by all means, let me know what you'd like to see made, what in the sculpture itself you'd like me to emphasize or draw attention to, and most importantly, banter about it. If it's not something I'm familiar with, then I'd love to learn about it, and if it is, then always happy to engage with fellow fans. That's what is, I hope, going to make these live streams fun. Because, for all intents and purposes, I don't know, as I've said before, more than half of the stuff that I asked to sculpt, but if this is something that appeals to you guys, I'd want to know what's appealing about it, because I just might join you in that. Still, seems like we're making progress here. Maybe a little bit more in the back. Because this was actually something I learned in my studies, is that sometimes the more impressive especially in terms of sculptures, pieces of art, are the things that have the kind of details no one would ever appreciate, and yet somehow you can just tell. Even though you guys see these sculptures only from one angle due to just being sculpted like that, it's always the more positive responses when people can tell that there's just more than meets the eye about them. So I always make sure that these have a quality about them that even those who appreciate them the most don't nearly grasp as much as they could. All right. Well, let's see here. How does that look? You can hear the Disney theme already. Can't play it, though. That would be copyright. Well, there we go. That would be the Disney castle. So, with that as our starting point, let's see. We have any other requests to begin us off and make use of the time. Let's see. Marcus the Sardine. Oh my goodness, that is hilarious. Yeah, absolutely. So the there we go. Trying to get that reference was on VR chat, wasn't it? The text to speech guy, Robert. I don't like this rock. That guy. All right, let me see if I can get a photograph of him. I'd be happy to do that. Marcus the Worm was the sardine. There we go. It seems fairly straightforward. I'm sure, like everyone else, you never know what you're going to come across in the darker corners of the internet, or brighter, depending on your reaction to it. But it's just one of those things that you stumble into in the dark hours of the night, and you just wonder, not only does this exist, and that being a question of itself, but just having to laugh at how committed they are to their craft. That is always a form of comedy that I admire. Is someone who found something they find funny, and just in the chaos, we all get to benefit from it. It would be considered non sequitur humor, but nonetheless, Robert. I really said it to be impressive for doing an impression of an automated voice, but still, I hear the lore is quite extensive surrounding Marcus. Big badinky bones. And you guys have some favorite quotes for him? That's vulgar or profane, maybe abstain, but still. I have discharged my fluid. Oh, I love these guys. No, I will not put the green stuff on his finger. I hear he gets quite sad about it. All right. Set for the first hand. That bizarre cryptid-like appendage. Second, oddly enough, I think is how many chins is that? His triple chin would probably be the one that we get the most detail into. But nonetheless, seems to be simple enough for a sculptor's benefit. And that's another thing for those of you who are into 3D sculpting, the not obviously with physical mediums, but in the digital department, same thing with digital art. Full respect to you, because that is a whole other ballpark as far as art is concerned. I usually am better when I can stay hands-on, and I know that they have equipment that accommodates that to a point, but some of us have to engage in ways that you guys have become excellent in, and I have to give full marks for that. It certainly is a more ideal market on the internet when you can just do it digitally. And obviously, people are people. You run into some oddballs who perform in that medium, but regarding the art itself, I think it is tops when people take what they are good at, make positive influence and contribution to the lives of others. I agree completely. Is mouth the open or closed? And maybe semi? It works for me. The eyes will obviously be the simplest. There we go. Robert, I have been calcinified. I have ascended. I will not ask for copyright on that if they choose to incorporate that into a stream. What do you think? The neck ought to be maybe a little bit thicker. Let's work on that. I want to include that in the uploads if that is responded to positively. All right, there we go. Marcus the Worm. Or whatever the lore has expanded on him into now. Yeah, the STLs are pretty good too, aren't they? Robert. There we go. See if we can make those eyes the same. Okay. So there we go. That's Marcus the Sardine. All right. So what do we have next? Good to see all of you. Hope that this has been positive so far. Let's see what else we can get on the docket here. Let's go into our list. Should probably mute that. Clicking noises. All right, let's see here. How does, let's see, we did animation, Disney, CRTV. That'd be amusing carryover from last time. Did a animated TV character. And that's set. Let's see about Eric Cartman from South Park. Yeah, I can do that. Eric Cartman. Despite the odder nature of South Park's humor, obviously prefer mediums that don't have swearing, but I do have full respect for the writers because they do not pull punches. Oftentimes, through sheer quantity of coverage and information, provide some very necessary and lighthearted social satire, and their advice on writing was revolutionary. The and then versus the because of approach. I recommend you guys look that up if you're ever interested in appreciating writing more, because just like with even some music mediums, I used to find opera really annoying because I was just going off of how, the sound was to me. But I got Mongo respect for it after I, took a course in music and talked about the history and the training that goes into that kind of music, and you just have to respect after a certain point. Just even if you don't necessarily find it as your cup of tea, it was incredible just to know the kind of vocal training, the kind of range, the kind of control that you need in order to pull off that specific genre of music. And that not only made me like opera just on principle and knowing how much hard work went into it, but all sorts of further attentions to detail regarding music opened up. Made me more of a connoisseur than I ever thought I'd be, you know? Education is a gateway into appreciating things more than you thought you would. It's amusing how, like, the simpler characters and stuff, you have to draw attention to the finer details, and that ends up making it almost more difficult. Because if something simple is done too simply, then people can tell and it looks worse. But if you put too much effort into it, then it almost shows a greater level of appreciation. And that's what we want. We want people who are fans of Eric Cartman to see this and feel appreciated, to be recognized. I think now that I'm trying to stay on the topic, I think I've only seen 3 episodes of South Park, and it was some time ago. Still, like I said, I appreciate the writer's talent, even if it's not necessarily in the format that I enjoy, or at least executed in the form I enjoy. I love comedy. Just not vulgarity, you know. Seems he's a little tall. Let's scrunch him down a little bit, and then I think that's good. Let's see how this looks on the stream here. Looks like a penguin. Well, it's Eric Cartman, everybody. Let me know what you think on that. Okay. So, we've got the Disney Castle. We've got Marcus the Worm. What else would you guys like to see made? We're on our 3rd set. Going through these here. Let's see if we can do... Oh, Pokemon. Yeah, we finished the live stream last time with Dudunsparce. Meowscarada. I watched the new one, so I haven't heard professional pronunciations of it. I also insist on pronouncing Arceus as Arceus, just because it upsets people that get a little too upset about the proper pronunciation of it. What are some of the other Pokemon that have controversial pronunciation? Meowscarada, for those of you who are just joining us. While you're all musing on that, I have another question for you. Is anyone familiar with the leaks that happened recently with Pokemon Wind and Waves? Due to the Switch prices, I don't know if I'll be able to jump on it, but I do always appreciate the design, since I'm likely to see those here. But apparently people were worried about the fire type going from a quadruped into a bipedal fighting type again. And, you know, everyone loves Blaziken and Incineroar, but trope downplayed on some people. Apparently it's a fire fairy type at the time of this recording. And if the leaks are legitimate, that hopefully will show some promise. I, as a dragon type lover, grieve at what fairy types have done to the dragon meta, but I understand completely and there being more to it than just, oh, this is the rarest kind of Pokemon and the hardest to train. But when you remove that factor and it just ends up being the go-to in the competitive scene, it definitely balanced the field. I just, I'm one of those OG Pokemon players. So when I made all the effort in catching a Feebas or finding Bagon and Pokemon Emerald, I put in my hours, worked hard to get that functional Salamence working and sweeping the Elite Four with it. And now it's, it's fairly common to run into those kind of guys, and everyone has one. So I can not weep that it's over, but smile that it happened, as they say. Still, what are you guys' thoughts on the ever-shifting metas of rarity? Not the My Little Pony character, by the way, the other one. The concept of rarity. Because dragon types were cool. Not to say they still aren't, but accommodating for the competitive scene, seems that it all has been leveled out, which is tragic as much as it is a joy, because now we don't have to work for 9 hours of farming in order to find the single dragon type. But for those that actually did it, it's tragic because they put in those hours. I don't know. Said informed opinions. Let's see about these tuft pants. Oh, got a tail. What was the starter from Meowscarda again? It was that. I don't actually even remember which one this was from. Was this from Scarlet and Violet or Sword and Shield? Because Sword and Shield was the soccer player, so that's probably Scarlet and Violet. I chose the fire type, obviously. I'm pretty purist in that department, unless Inteleon or Sobble. I appreciate those from time to time, too. In fact, I was so dedicated to that in my first playthrough on Pokemon Sapphire, I actually preferred Mudkip over Blaziken. Blasphemy, I know, but part of the appeal. It's about your favorites. People get competitive. Well, that's why I prefer single-player games. Yeah, play Who's That Pokemon with foil sculptures. That's a good one. Still, always fun to see people's favorites. My favorite Pokemon, I guess you have to categorize it, but overall I'd say Absol. Mega Absol being in the initials won me over to Mega Evolution very efficiently. I'm still a fan of it, but Pokemon Legends ZA kind of changed the format a bit so that Mega Evolution don't mean what it used to. Still means something good, but it's just different. Yeah, I haven't finished the campaign. I did get the DLC for Hoopa, but because, again, of, life, work hours, and having to balance adulting with gaming, I have to set it down every now and again. I took a break from Pokemon Legends ZA so that I could actually finish the campaign for Pokemon Sword, since I was able to grab that on a Mongo sale, which, again, everyone can appreciate when it comes to Nintendo products. So that's what I'm doing right now. I know that they kind of baby walk you through it, but doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it. Appreciate the story. The guiltiest, though, and I don't know if I'll ever get it or probably hand it off to the little one someday, but Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee and Pikachu. That one I have not touched yet, but everything that I've heard is it's basically Pokemon Red and Blue, but definitely lowered in terms of difficulty. Because remember, I was playing, my first Pokemon game was Pokemon Gold on the Game Boy Color. So that sets most of us back. I remember when farming and having to, do the whole egg deals for certain types of moves. TMs only worked once. The XP share didn't match the same kind of experience you would get in the match itself. So you had to either just do the one roided out Pokemon that carried your whole team, which was generally your starter, or just having to spend all that time working through making sure that your team was generally balanced before getting stomped by Whitney's Miltank anyway. Yeah, I remember Match Off, but doesn't mean it wasn't hard. The challenge. Although, yeah, that's a good point. The mods, ROM hacks and stuff, people have gotten very creative with making Pokemon challenging. The only mod hack that I've ever played was Pokemon Gaia, and I didn't finish that. I got stuck after the 4th gym because apparently I have to find a specific secret tree and then climb through that network system, which again they were going for, make Pokemon a little bit less straightforward, but having to look everything up on and on and on is, in order to get anywhere in the game, kind of takes away from it being a immersive experience. Because that's the balance between something being, Dark Souls challenging and something that's just to unwind in your free time. I guess I'm the sort that certainly does both. I'm avid Elden Ring and Dark Souls player, but I also appreciate times where I don't have to, have an aneurysm every time I end up in a new area and have to memorize fight patterns and all that stuff. But again, that's a gamer's life. Overcoming challenges and immersing themselves in a world with its own rules. As far as the Pokemon that I know, I definitely, again, am more experienced in the generation that I knew. I kind of tapped out after X and Y because of my need for higher education, but once I then got kind of stabilized in the workforce and had free time again, I was able to jump back on, but like the Sword and Shield, Pokedex, and the newer characters and stuff I'm unfamiliar with, but I could tell you anything from Gen 1 to 5 like that. That was my heyday, as they say. All right. Neoscarada. Don't upset the fans here. How's that look on the stream? That look acceptable to you guys? Good. Good. Well, take a photo of that one. Let's see how everyone is doing. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So what else can we do? Let's go through our backlog here and see what other requests we can find. Old Wayne from Hylix. That works. I need another reference for this. Old Wayne. Let me see if I can look that up on my phone here. Anyone fan of the franchise set for finer details? Because what I have here is a pretty unique thing. Old Wayne. Oh, okay. So that makes that stand out a little better. Thank goodness for fan art. Okay, so Old Wayne from Hylix. Let's get to it. Seems like kind of a centipede-esque mermaid. Not familiar with the game at all. Can you guys give me any detail? Oh, Hylix. This seems like a RPG of sorts, but that's as broad as terms can possibly get. Immersive world, stuff like Final Fantasy and all that stuff, it just amazes me. The level of creativity that these writers can get to, making not just likable characters, but immersive stories. It shows the talent of people like George Lucas and Timothy Zahn with Star Wars. If that opens a can of worms and you guys have Star Wars requests, by all means, bring them in. Old Wayne. We're doing regular Wayne, and he was somewhat humanoid, but this is different. One singular eye, which you guys can't see. Let me put that up for you. And his 10 eyes above that. Let's see what I can do with accommodations, at least for the silhouette. And accommodating my foot starting to fall asleep. Yeah, no. Anyone familiar with Hylix, or just the individual left the request? We'll let them fill that in the comments later. Assume this is more of an end game form of an familiar character. There you go. Don't mind the posturing, folks. I'm just stretching out my right leg. I'll set the kind of breaks where I can take in between. Seem to be a little streamers there near that crescent as well. It's always positive to see in the comments of the videos the smaller details getting acknowledged and pointed out. We don't want to be lazy. Don't want to skip the important things, because just because I'm not familiar doesn't mean people don't have their heart and soul poured into these things themselves. So far. A little jointing work, since it seems to be insected. Or sectional, insectoid. I tried to pronounce one and I got neither. And then it seems to be the rest is just draperies. So let's get to it. Start with the flowing cloak. Continue with the arms. I long for Hylix lore. Can you all enlighten me? And perhaps separate background music. Yeah, I looked into that. I just didn't want it to be kind of, grainy playing through this. The YouTube stuff, I don't know how to work their live streaming system yet as far as their Bean music is concerned. Obviously, since these are a lot slower paced, you're not seeing them accelerated like in the proof videos that are on the YouTube channel. The goal in that, obviously, is about the just showing that these aren't AI or anything, but the music that I use for the channel, the When the Seagulls Cry soundtrack, the Dawn of War 2 soundtrack, they're either because they were very generous for into the studios in letting me have those royalties, or at least for most of them, or the company went out of business and didn't renew any responsibility, which I feel bad for to a degree. I think that, as you can tell, I enjoy the music, and I think they're pretty universal in their application for setting intense tones. The fact that the composers and stuff that made those video games accessible not getting credit or exclusivity is sad, but does make for ease of access for those playing the games, or at least making videos from the music of those games. But THQ Nordic having merged before that point, Relic Entertainment and stuff. There is Old Wayne from Hylix. Thank you for the request. Make sure that that is visible there. Okay, so that will make it our 5th sculpture of the live stream. Almost past the halfway point. How are all of you doing? Any specific requests you would like to see made? We still have about an hour before we need to log off. I gotta get to the rest of the day, but by all means, let me know. Requests are free, encouraged, and appreciated. I guess we're on an RPG streak. The Owl Cultist from Fear and Hunger. Yeah, I can do that. Tragic thing, actually. The Fear and Hunger game, it gets into like the cultic myth and all that stuff, and I don't have a problem with that. But the some of the requests for boss characters and stuff have been kind of sus in their presentation, and so I've had to say no to some of the characters in it because they represented parts of female anatomy. But the franchise itself seems interesting. Don't know anything about it, so any of you here Fear and Hunger fans, seems like a interesting RPG comparable to Final Fantasy. Allegedly kind of like what I've been informed about Hylix, but can't verify. And you always have to go with that old Russian proverb, trust but verify. There's always going to be an instance where you just assume something is correct someone comes along and corrects you, and then you needlessly look like a fool. I can tell you guys plenty of times where I've been so certain of something, insisted upon it, and ended up with egg on my face because I didn't even take the time to verify myself. I just went off of my obscure memory, and because, again, something familiar to me at one point that it always was, and take the time to refresh. Put me in a very silly position. You can consider that true with any art medium as well. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean you want to neglect the craft. Obviously, breaks and stuff aren't the issue or concern. One wonders what this flute serves as a purpose for. But never neglect those mediums, even when it comes to your most beloved franchises, because especially in terms of things like Star Wars and Warhammer, they are retconning them by the minute. And as The Lord of the Rings, another sad example of this, began with the observation, once that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it. I know I do a terrible Kate Blanchett impression, but hear me. So this is, for those of you just joining us, the Owl Cultist from Fear and Hunger. RPG format, allegedly enemy sprite. It looks like he's all too familiar with the woods. Maybe he's a Hollywood executive, we never know. Are you guys familiar with that? The owl worshipping cults and stuff? I don't buy most of it, but the conspiracy mind never appeals to me, but I do enjoy kind of just letting the chaos reign as long as it isn't taken too far, those kinds of conversations. We had a topical event with like junior high students, and last time we did special event, it was regarding conspiracy theories. So what we did was we gave them obviously a few months to prepare for it, but they were just all given the opportunity to come up with their own conspiracy theory. And I said, and I quote, the more unhinged, the better. And then after that, we would start to, analyze patterns and note that the issue with conspiracy theories is, as another wise man once observed, it begins where the evidence ends. And the issues, of course, with things like manipulation tactics, narrative building, that kind of stuff, positive, negative reinforcement, mob mentality, just being sensitive to those things, because in the era of the internet, you never know. But just hearing the stories that they were coming up with, that CRTVs are observing us, and that they're a sentient eldritch being, and the devil controls the Vatican, and all the birds aren't real stuff. That was fun to see them using. And of course, they didn't have to be original in it. We were just having fun. But getting them the chance to just go into all that stuff, I was surprised that the owl cult in Central California wasn't something that they chose. I did enjoy the time, though. You guys have your favorite conspiracy theories? Oh, and I had to on several occasions clarify. We were asking for conspiracies, not verified facts. That was another fun one. Alex Jones info. Not a lot of Alex Jones stuff, but that putting chemicals in the water that turn the frickin' frogs gay. That was definitely a meme, but he wasn't wrong. There was an actual incident where they were observing animals' less proclivity to mate as a result of the introduction of certain chemicals into their ecosystem. But how he presented it is just what made it meme-worthy. I don't follow Alex Jones myself, but the the amusing thing is that his formatting is based off of this kind of, world wrestling announcers. If you watch like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and some more modern guys, and they are supposed to be just that extra in everything that they're doing. So he does that as kind of a announcer. And obviously the issues when you would go into the shootings of schools, the psyops, which again, all fairness, he did once and apologized for it immediately after. That gets difficult when it's put in presentation. So since he's not comedy per se, but is in a format of comedic worth or value, you kind of have to be careful where the joke ends and the point begins. And obviously I'm aware of that too. Comedy and humorous formatting makes very uncomfortable and even heartbreaking topics accessible to people, but can also be taken as undermining the severity of it. So there is wisdom in that balance. There's the owl cultist from Fear and Hunger. Let's see if we can give him more of a little head tilt. Not rotating, obviously, but here we go. All right, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got to start the Disneyland castle, Cinderella's castle specifically. We've got Marcus the Worm. We've got Eric Cartman from South Park. We've got Scarada from Pokemon. We've got Old Wayne from Hylix. And as you just saw, the owl cultist from Fear and Hunger. So let's see if we can knock some more out of our backlog here, and I will keep an eye on the chat box if so desired. Let's see here. We've got maybe we'll save more Disney ones for next time. Do like one Disney to start our introductory point. Rosalina? Sure, let's do Rosalina. The Super Mario Galaxy movie just came out on DVD. My wife loved that movie, by the way. Joining that with her in Super Smash Brothers as well. Made for a very familiar character. I was surprised. I thought that the person that voice acted her was going to be as hostile as she was in prior roles, but she actually managed to just do her job, and that, imagine, made for a less than regrettable viewing experience. I thought she did justice to the character too. And I'm doing the Luma first because for those of you who aren't aware, and probably are because I, again, haven't told you this yet, Luma Lee is like the funniest thing in history to me. I never in my wildest dreams would have ever imagined using a Luma to quote like Nietzschean nihilist philosophy, especially in the first one. I was just laughing my head off because I read those references in college. So, again, it's like the non sequitur humor of Marcus the Worm back there. I always love it when I'm caught off guard on those things. And apparently the Super Mario movies contributed to the lore. The actual writers in Nintendo adopted and canonized the new features of Princess Peach and Rosalina being siblings and having celestial powers. I don't know if that counts as spoilers. It's on DVD now. You guys have to have seen it by now. Maybe those searching through the chat dialogue and doing word searches, they'll be able to recognize spoiler alerts, hopefully. But if you're that dedicated to getting to a discussion about Rosalina and the Super Mario movies, I think you're probably more informed than the average bear if you're going for specifics like that. What's interesting too about those films is the very consistent and positive messaging about evil by nature and practical love and action, not just in terms of the romance side of Mario and Peach, but just friendship aspect with Yoshi, the self-sacrifice, and even towards those who don't deserve it, like Mario towards Bowser Jr., without further spoilers. All that stuff. I found that a very positive movie experience. That's just kind of my thing. I want to catch historical references, philosophical, points, and the overall ethics and message. Maybe it's again because I teach kids, but I do appreciate when the writers effectively communicate points rather than just become an ideologue, a lecturer, try to argue something that's plainly contrary to reality. Still, what can you do? Sometimes they just go to see a superhero movie and, well, these people aren't really doing that much anymore either. Is the Luma still on screen? Yeah, there we go. Oh, the star is hollow. Why do they have to make this more difficult? Why didn't they take into the consideration an obscure sculpting channel when they designed the character? By the way, what was the game again that she first appeared in? It was Super Mario Galaxy, or was she part of the story before that? Because Mario, Nintendo as a whole, wasn't really something I explored too much. I definitely got into Pokemon when I was a little guy, but not the other franchises they were putting out. Not even Metroid, believe it or not. Got exposed to that through Super Smash Brothers before the Metroid games themselves. There you go. I'm going to wrap this around her wrist first because she's holding it with 2 fingers instead of with the whole hand. And so regarding that detail, I want to make sure that it's noticeable without being impractical. And yes, don't worry, I'm going to get the dress on her in a second. I just start with the outline and then I add details as we go. A very lovely heart-shaped face, tiny button anime nose, and that reminds me, I said anime nose there. That observation got me kicked out of a Discord server one time. For one of the digital artists that was set filling requests and made the question regarding another video game franchise. I was asking questions about called Code Vein. It took place in the God Eater universe, which is an anime, but because the game's art design didn't have any media representation and stuff, the issue was, since it didn't actually take place in an anime, since it isn't featured as the anime art style, what qualifies something as an anime, or is it the fact that it's animated which in video games would also not be the case. So I was wondering about that, and they just said dogmatically, no, it's anime. And I just said, no, I'm interested about this. I want to know where like the line begins, kind of sharpening conversation and debate tactics. But apparently in a debate forum, they weren't in the mood, and I just got kicked. But hey, they can run their channels how they want. Reminds me of the kind of people that I ran into in the first 2 foil channels I uploaded. But we won't get into that nightmare. That our back blocks need a little bit more. And note once again, as the live stream unfolds, requests are free and open. Please, your creativity and unique interests are more desired than any agenda I may have in the time that we're spending. So we'll have more active days and some slower, but nonetheless, this is a seemingly more efficient way of me getting through the backlog, so I don't really mind. Just, I guess, determine how often we do these. All right, and now for the shoulder coverings and the star on her heart. No, I don't think I've ever made Luma Lee quotes while playing Rosalina and Smash Brothers. I definitely do that in a casual format, but I haven't played Smash Brothers, let alone Rosalina in it, since seeing that movie. It's a fairly recent thing. I think I will do that now, though, that you recommended that. Life is sad. Prison is sad. Oh. Here, I'll put that on after the track. Got an underdress, so let's do that first. Guys, I've done Pete. Well, have I done Pete? I'll look that up. But if you guys want to see Daisy and Princess Peach as well, by all means, let me know. You set the agenda. Get too overwhelmed in this here. How's everyone doing in the chat box? All right, we're doing good. Very good. Very good. A little extra there. And then the star. Perfect. Perfect. Any of you guys Street Fighter fans? Planning on seeing that movie when it comes out? I hope it does well. Definitely easy to outdo the success and engagement of the first time they attempted that movie. Apparently the Super Mario stuff too, showing that they can in fact learn lessons. Ooh. All right. The mother of the stars and her little Luma. One of many, apparently. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So, Princess Rosalina. It's done. That makes, we count the Luma as part of the same sculpture. Got the Disney Castle, Marcus the Worm, Cartman, Scarada, Old Wayne, Owl Cultist from Fear and Hunger, and Rosalina. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we got 2 more or a half hour more, whichever takes place, happens, or passes first. Any of you guys have requests, please let me know. So make sure that everything's going through in the sound. Is the conversation still acceptable? Let's see here. Checking the computer. Yeah, checking the computer. Weird. Upgraded the mic and everything. It still sounds pretty hollow. Then again, I am distant. I think if I got closer. All right. Well, let's go through our backlog again. You guys seem pretty content with that agenda. Did a Pokemon already. Did some Sonic the Hedgehog, perhaps. Sega. Can join that. Why not? Why not? We got a request for Silver the Hedgehog. We can get through that one. Although let me check and make sure that I haven't done that recently because it does sound familiar. Got a very organized system here. I did Sonic, Silver, and Shadow all in one sculpture. The 38th FOIL request that I've ever done, at least on this channel. Okay, yeah, hasn't been filled yet, so that will be acceptable, as Super Nanny says. Silver the Hedgehog. With Amy Rose coming in the Sonic 4 movie, I wonder how long it's going to be before Silver shows up. I think that we're going to get, Omega and Rouge the Bat and the alligator guy more aptly than we are some of the deep lore characters. Although the robot Sonic guy is the one that's going to be appearing in this one. I wonder if we're going to have to deal with that genie demon character from Sonic Heroes or not. That would be quite the story. Although the one I would be most looking forward to, and this is 100% only because of meme material, is the Shadow the Hedgehog game, if that ends up being put into cinema, because the whole Black Doom thing and the gun and all that really over the top hilarious animation and footage, audio looping. I mean, it wasn't the highest quality game, but it was the first of those video games where I could handle bad language and all the gun violence and stuff. I would be amused to see that. And again, they did a lot of nods to it in Sonic 3. I don't dismiss that, but the idea of seeing the Shadow the Hedgehog plot line more solidified and put into theaters as he's coping with his amnesia, that would be hilarious. And again, the amnesia trope, it's kind of been done again and again and again. They did the Dragon Ball thing, the Yu-Gi-Oh thing. It happens a lot in anime, so, and that actually would be anime. So if it ends up making its way into the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, or they just kind of write that out and Shadow's just out there, I think that'd be funny too. Point is, I don't think we're seeing Silver in a very close amount of time, pun intended. I do think that we're going to see some interesting characters in the fourth one, though, because Amy Rose opens up a lot of very interesting themes. We will see, though. See if the guy who was watching after them gets protective. Or if Amy Rose is the twist villain. Wouldn't that be funny? Still, giant hammer. That's what we know so far. That's the post credits. And Shadow survived the arc, but we already knew that. Spoilers! So, continuing with his humanoid features. So they can't run a wire and provide glowing details, but I'm sure those that do take the time in their 3D printed sculptures and clay work and stuff ought to be commended when doing that. I wonder how they'd adapt. Well, I guess they're pretty much sticking to the games 1-to-1 apart from the owl features, so I think they are going to do just fine now that they've learned their lesson and just sticking to the stories that originally sold. But you never know. An activist can take over and squander the money-making and crowd-pleasing potential that the Sonic franchise has had. But for now, no reason to think otherwise. And man, would have thought that Jim Carrey would have made an excellent Dr. Eggman. Now that we've all but 1-to-1 adapted to the comics, or to the video games, I should say, as far as the franchise is concerned. Film, an art form in of itself. All right, now for the hard part. I think I'm going to strain his neck a little bit, because I've learned these lessons making Sonic characters. Very top heavy. All right. Ways there any Terminal Montage fans here? I think that they are a phenomenal influence on the internet, especially regarding Nintendo characters. Pokemon and Donkey Kong, Mario, Metroid, even the crossover parodies, I think are all just genius. Not just because of the intensity and drama of them, but the quality of writing and humor. I think he's a fantastic person. I'm glad he is, well, not just he, but everyone involved in that channel are using their powers for good. Oh man, that would be hilarious if they made memorabilia comments regarding the style of Silver's hair. Hopefully just one, though, because I don't think you want to be getting too much into those themes in a movie that's mainly intended for kids. I miss those days where that was assumed. You understood the difference between what you would show to kids and what you wouldn't. But hey, I'm a teacher. I'm protective. I get upset. Anything comes between the well-being of students or anyone I would even associate with them. All right. Make sure that I add on those cat ears. Or hedgehog ears, I should say. And I can multitask and just use the wrapping behind him to adjust this little problem I'm dealing with. About 25 minutes. Say we're doing okay. Might get to sign off a little early if you guys are all cool. Otherwise, be happy to stick around for the whole committed duration, and we will see just how much we can accomplish. But that's up to you guys. You let me know. I think the open hand would probably be more apropos. That way people can see the details of the hand. His back hair, I think, needs to be thicker. What do you guys think? This isn't helping for your schizophrenia accusations. They're not accusations. Anything else would probably just make me used to this format. I don't mind talking to myself. It's probably the most informed conversations I could have with anybody. Problem is when I don't even know what I'm thinking. I catch myself off guard in those conversations. Then I'd think we're getting into problem territory. All right. Get his eyebrows adjusted. Get some uniformity in the direction of his hair. There we go. That looks good. Very good. All right. So that is project number 8. Got time, or at least I've got energy for one more. Any requests? Big, small, personal, detailed. What do we got? Hiccups. That passed quickly. Let's see here. Got that covered. That covered. Requests are open. I'm going through my backlog, but if any of you want to make a request, this will be the last one of the stream. Let's see here. I'm definitely holding that one off. Got a request to do the Reichstag from Berlin. Seems like it would just come out as blocky. I don't know. Let's see. Point, the requests are open. If any of you have an idea, put that out one more time. Going once, going twice. All right. Seems like with what I have in the backlog here, I'm going to go off of chronological order at least. Unless I should do a Homestuck or Vast Error character. Those trolls are pretty simple to do. Let's do something from maybe a fighter game. Let's see. Yu-Gi-Oh! Done enough video games. Let's do something from... Did I do the Sea Emperor Leviathan yet? I think I have. Let's do the Turnip Spirit from Spirited Away. We'll finish with that. That I think would be simple. By the way, you guys may consider this anime blasphemy, but I actually have never seen that movie in its fullest. plenty of summaries, memes, and parodies, but I never sat down with that. Knowing the company I keep, that'll be amended shortly. But the only Studio Ghibli film I've seen is Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind. And that was very specific circumstances. The request was actually made here. It's to make her on her glider. The Man in Blue Revelation or the Ohm or anything. Although I think I've done the Ohm. Stories, me taking her left, but you got to commend him for his art. World building. Kind of like the Star Wars point we made earlier. Start from the ground up, since the best way to make pudgy details without being unflattering is just to layer. Work on this belly. The curious loincloth. I'm sure there's plenty, but be interested to see the Japanese folklore behind what inspired some of these characters. I'm sure they have whole documentaries on it. Any of you guys know any background information to recommend for those things? Let me know. Always a fan of trivia. Done anything from... I have not done anything from Conker's Bad Hair Day. And that I'm aware anyway. Due to the, Great Mighty Pooh and the sus nature of the flower, I don't think it would come up, but I'm sure with the rabbit itself, I wouldn't mind. A rabbit, the squirrel. Just I haven't played it. All right, the arms, not unlike the legs. It's an extremely straightforward entity. How's everyone doing? Any requests coming in the meantime? No? All right. Well, we're still working on the turnip spirit. We'll do a quick recap before we sign off here. And again, pardon my ignorance on Studio Ghibli films, but like I said, I don't know most of these requests. That's why I enjoy getting these kinds of inputs from people who have lived lives apart from my own. You get the chance to be recommended a lot of fun stuff. All right, giant beard. That amusing upside down bowl on his head. I wonder if that's in reference to another certain Japanese turtle-esque character. Remember his etiquette. Get him to spill that water. We'll lose his power. It's different from this, though. This wouldn't be more of a beard. It's kind of like a cheek mustache thing. Again, I'm sure it's explained in more detail in the film itself. I know there wouldn't be a single person on the planet out there who wouldn't recommend it. I just have to pick and choose with my time, you know. I know what I like. All right, now for the bowl, and then we're done. Kind of like a sun hat, doesn't it? All right, there's the turnip spirit from Spirited Away. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So just to recap, we're let's see, hour 45 minutes. I'd say that's a good tapping out point. We've got the Disneyland Cinderella Castle. We've got Marcus the Worm. We've got Eric Cartman. We've got Scarada. We've got Old Wayne from Hylix. We've got the Owl Cultist from Fear and Hunger. We've got Rosalina and Luma. And in addition to what you just saw, Silver the Hedgehog. All right, very nice. Well, thank you all for joining me. There's post-recorded or present. I appreciate you all stopping in. I will let you all know through the post section on YouTube as well as the other social media platforms where appropriate when the next live stream is going to be. If any of you are familiar with perhaps I haven't expanded into it yet, but TikTok platforms, if you think that this would receive this medium or if that is an easier platform to stream on, again, new to this kind of formatting, just want to provide evidence and upload pictures. But if you think that there would be more people willing to engage or provide material to fulfill requests on those platforms, I will go where the people are, as Princess Ariel would say. I want to be where the people are. I do too. So that Instagram, anywhere else that you think would be appropriate for these sort of things, I would love to have those kind of insights. But with that said, I think that we will sign off here and now. 9 sculptures is plenty as far as my strength is concerned. So I want to thank you all for joining me. I will look forward to the next time where we can all gather like this and keep engaging in the chat box. Until then, see you all next time.